Okay, so this is going to be a review video for exam 1. You get to see my lovely face, and I may show some pictures. Now, granted, they're going to be backwards, so just kind of bear with me here, okay? And this is covering chapters 1 through 8, but we're going to be skipping chapter 6 here. So in chapter 1 of your book, really just focus on the study questions and the chapter summary. That's really all you need to know there. I don't expect that you're going to see much on your exam with that. In chapter 2, we start kind of getting into the basics of immunology and immunohematology. So really focus on bolded vocab words like in vivo and in vitro. You're going to want to know the difference between those. Hapten, allogenic, autologous, those are all things you want to know, especially in blood bank going forward. Your learning objectives really kind of summarize the main points of the chapter that you want to look at. Diagrams that I'm more concerned about. I would focus more on comparison of IgM and IgG, so things like table 2.2 are good to look at. And then, of course, the review questions are great, and chapter summaries in chapter 2. So moving on to chapter 3, it's blood banking overview. Know what your reagents are. What's Antisera? What are red cell reagents? What does that mean? Know a general idea of how expiration dates work. So anything with a red cell reagent has a very short shelf life. Those are only good for about a month, whereas Antiseras probably have a shelf life of 2 or more years. It's all great things to know there. Of course, something I know comes up is monoclonal antibodies. Look at box 3.2. It should be on page 52 of your book. I would definitely kind of look around on 51 and 52 when it talks about reagents, and definitely monoclonal versus polyclonal. You're going to know what that means. ABO typing. Know how to type. What's a discrepancy? What does a discrepancy look like? A1 versus A2. What happens if your front type's all positive and your back type's all positive? So instead of typing on the front like an AB, that, you know. Of course, I know a pair of y'all on the lab sample had that occur. So things that could cause that, of course, just a bad sample, but cold antibodies could cause, nonspecific colds could cause something there. And of course, questionable samples like with fibrin and things like that can all cause weird things on your back types. Know what lists and PEG are. Know what your enzymes are. Know what they're called. You've got pipin and fasten. Make sure you're reading through chapter 3. It was a good one to read. It also goes into gel testing and microplate testing, and I believe there's a question about both of those on your exam. We didn't discuss it in class, but I know that I'm holding y'all responsible for reading your chapters, so this is where I'm checking to see if you did. Chapter summaries are great, and the study questions are good to look at. Even if you have time and you're studying and you do those critical thinking exercises for practice, that's also going to help you. Chapter 4 gets into genetics of blood banking. So really want to know that you know homozygous versus heterozygous, codominant, dominant, recessive. Look at page 77 as a good start there. There is a table 4.2 that talks about where blood group systems lie on a chromosome. Not a bad idea to have read over that. Chapter 4 has a lot going on. A good place to just start, like always, I've said it so far, every chapter, read your chapter summary, do your review questions. That's a minimum going to get you ready, but that's just a good starting point. Chapter 5 really starts to get to meat and potatoes. It's going to discuss ABO and H antigens. Make sure you understand ABO. What is the H antigen? What does it cause? In here. So subgroups, familiarize yourself, know what they look like, know what a discrepancy in the back type is when it comes to those subgroups. It starts to really get into details in Chapter 5 with all of that. A really great figure, and bear with me because you know it's backwards here. This figure here in your book is figure 5.10, and she's on page 109. And I know she's backwards, but these boxes, it really goes into ABO discrepancies. I would familiarize myself with that one. Not only is it great for this exam, but it's going to be great going forward in blood bank questions and blood bank situations. What section of this is it? This is section 6 of chapter 5. Good stuff there. Know it. Look at it. Look at those charts. It's going to help you going forward. Then, of course, review questions and study questions are great. So make sure you look at those. Skipping chapter 6, we're going to go on to chapter 7. And we get into antigens and other red blood cell groups. So Kell, Duffy, that's where we're going with here. The organization of the chapter is key. So if you look starting on page 147 and you see all of these little symbols and yes and no boxes, and it talks about very key point things here. The questions I had everybody do for their lab were pulled from this right here. I want to know characteristics, how the antigen reacts. Does it cause HDFN, which is hemolytic disease of the fetus and the newborn? Is it considered clinically significant or clinical antibody to one of these red cell antigens has unique characteristics? And that's what I'm hoping that we're picking up here. So start on page 147 with section 1. Table 7.1 is great, and keep going through every group. You definitely want to hit Kell. You want to hit Duffy. You want to hit Kid. Those three are big things there. Know some things that are unique with each one. So what's cool about Duffy? What's with malaria? That might be important. What's unique about Kid? Can it bind complement? Does it bind complement? Clinically significant, clinically insignificant. IgG versus IgM. Know what's going on there. Lutheran and Lewis, make sure you've just read over it and particularly look at how enzymes affect it. Lewis has secretor genes. Read through that, know kind of a general idea. You might see it, you might not see it. So just kind of all the way through the chapter, and you get to HLA antibodies. No big deal there, but just know what we find as significant right now with HLA, and my expectations is that you know that HLA is important in organ transplant, organ donation. Not very clinically significant as a red cell, but more important on the organ side, which if you go and you move off and you go to a very specialized large hospital that does organ donations, that might be something you would be involved in. So at that kind of facility, that's where you would see HLA in real life. Chapter summary is great. Make sure you know it, and do your review questions. It's going to help you again. We're going to work up either 2 or 3 antibody panels. That's 2 of our 12 days together. That's a lot of time that I've spent with that. So, of course, we're going to have to be able to do it, and it's clinically very important. 90% of your job in blood bank is working up antibodies and addressing them. So, of course, we have to understand the antibodies, what they might cause, what the concern is about it, how we can identify them. That Chapter 8 and Chapter 7, they go hand in hand like 2 twins. They're just peas in a pod. Chapter 8, go back through here and read about how to work up antibodies. I will have very specific rules for class on Thursday with the exam, and we will have a general guide. The antibodies should be fairly straightforward with the rules that I'll provide to you. Work up the sample panels in Chapter 8. Watch the blood bank guide video I had given y'all before. Understand what happens with like Table 8.5, Table 8.6. What's the difference between PEG and LIS? It gets into that in there. High-frequency antigens, what are they? How do we ID them? Good things to know going forward. Auto controls. What do we do when our auto controls positive? That should be a big red flag on your panel. If you do your whole panel and you've got positive reactions and your auto controls positive, your panel's invalid. So how do we investigate a positive auto control? It's not going to be, oh, well, we messed up and we're going to repeat this again. That's not what happens. We're going to do something called a DAT. A direct antiglobulin test. What is it? Know it. We're going to do one in class on Thursday after our exam. That if you hit a positive auto control, we're going to stop and we're going to investigate why. Okay, so be prepared for that. And again, study questions, exercises, practice panels, chapter summaries. That's going to really get you through the exams. And it's not a bad idea. I posted some blood bank guy videos. Go back and review them. He's going to give you some viewpoints that maybe I'm not bringing to the table. But he will, and he's going to explain them different than I am. Good luck. We'll see you all Thursday at 11:30.